All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Monday night guest speaker. Tonight we are joined by Sabrina, and she's going to go over a bunch of cool stuff about the applying for jobs and some pitfalls you might come into and things of that nature. So excited to get started with that. We've got a couple things to go over real quick. Every Monday we do the guest speakers, at least every Monday that we have somebody here to talk. So the next one is on the 10th. And that's Forge Your Legend, starting small in the data realm. So that'll be pretty cool and exciting, a nice little data talk. And then after that, we don't have anything until December. But keep an eye out because the careers team's always looking for people to book. Or if any of you all want to give a talk, reach out to one of us and we're happy to get that going. But with all that being said, just make sure you got your microphones muted. If you got any questions, type them in chat. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So I think we'll have time to answer any questions you may or may not have. And with that being said, Sabrina, you can take it away for us.
All right. Thanks, Danny. Hi, everyone. I'm Sabrina. I actually went to CodeU about 2 years ago. I was in the C# development program and loved it. I learned so much. I am still with the same company that I was with when I was in that program, which is LCS London Computer Systems. And so what I thought I would do today, really, I want to make sure that whatever this presentation is, it's going to be helpful to you guys. So I took what we have actually presented in person and online about our company, so you kind of understand like a company view of what it looks like for hiring, what might be helpful to know about a company that you might be wanting to interview for. And basically I took this presentation and I'm just gonna give it just like we did our typical info sessions, but I'm gonna go through it pretty quick. We also have like videos that we would show at the same time. And so I put that link in the chat just so you can like see those videos if you want to later. But yeah, that was number one. I kind of want to just go over through like what a showcase usually looks like for a company. And then at the end, I've got like very specific tips. I'm a recruiter. And so there's a lot of things that I've noticed as things are coming in for our different roles that maybe people make like mistakes or just aren't aware of. And so I brought those up in just a few slides at the end. And then I was going to open it up for questions to try to help you as much as I can, just because this program was really good to me. Really loved all the volunteers and everybody who helped. So I want to make sure I give back and help all of you in that way. So you should be able to see my screen. So I'm going to just kind of go through, like I said, like our typical info session. And let me see. Here we go. Just for a second. So I can still see the questions. I'll probably take questions more at the end, just because managing some of this is a bit tricky. Okay, you should see the screen change. Look good? Okay. So basically I'll tell you a little bit about our company, LCS, the culture and events, roles and next steps, if for instance you're applying to our company, and then the Q&As that we would normally have as a back and forth on that, and then kind of go into the common mistakes I've seen applicants make. So a little bit about me, like I mentioned already, I went through CodeU. I've actually been working at LCS London Computer Systems in Northern Cincinnati for over 14 years, actually. It's been a really long time. Before that point in time, I got my master's in teaching. I grew up in Virginia, went to James Madison University, and that's very well known for its teaching program. I taught 6th grade for 3 years, and then I lost my voice. I had vocal nodules, so I decided to take a sabbatical, ended up moving to Ohio, kind of took a year off. And then when I decided to go back into a career, I had worked for 4+ years during my college career at the IT help desk at the university. So I decided I want to take a shift, and then actually went into the product support department team, which is kind of like a customer service software support role. And then kind of went on from there. And basically every few years, 3+ years, they've been really wonderful to me about moving me to different roles that I feel like has helped my career or interests or growing in different skills that I'm interested in. And so that's why I've been with them for so long. And right now, my current role, I am a senior recruiter, and I'm no longer a professional development coach. I'm now only focused on recruiting. And so that's why I'm really hoping I can help in whatever way I can for all of you who I know are looking for those different tips to get jobs. A little bit about our company, LCS London Computer Systems. We've got a lot of different products and services. We refer to them as business critical technologies. The main one that we've created, because we are a software development company, is the Rent Manager software. It is property management accounting software. So normally I explain that to people. Think about owners who own properties. They need a way to track tenants moving in and out, maintenance issues, evictions. All of those different things are actually different features and modules within our software package, so those property managers and owners can run their business more smoothly. On top of that, it is a CRM software. That's a customer relationship management software, which basically tracks all of your communications. And you can usually mass communicate out of the software very efficiently. So for instance, you could like highlight, 1,000 people, right click and send them all a text. And then lastly, it's a full accounting suite. So people don't need Excel or QuickBooks to run their business. This has the general ledger, balance sheet, profit and loss, all the different financials that an accountant would need to do tax reports at the end of the year. So it is a very vast piece of software. I sometimes will refer to it as like the Microsoft Office suite. You know how there's Excel, Word, all of those different things, but they're all the same package. That's kind of what Rent Manager is like. So very vast. So most of the companies working towards that. And that's kind of what got me interested in the development world. We also have developed RM VoIP. It's a voice over IP phone system that we sell and support. We do have a data center. And then we've created, we offer website creation services. For the most part, the people that we create websites for are actually Rent Manager users. They want to have that database connection to the website. So for instance, they would be able to show all of the applicants for renters, all the applications, they could fill it out on the website and it'll push to the Rent Manager database. So they want that seamless flow. And so that's how we kind of create custom websites for them. We do have template ones that they don't necessarily need to pay for, but a lot of people want that specialized custom site. And so that's another service that we offer. And then we've also created a help desk ticketing software called QManage. So, IT companies can use that. It's a lot like ServiceNow. So we also use that internally. The company's been around since the 80s, so a really long time. It is still privately owned by the owner, Dave Hegeman, who was the original developer, and he did it to actually help his father, who had managed all of these different mobile homes and needed help doing that. And that's about when the computer came out. And so Dave, to help his father, created a very simplistic program, and it kind of grew from there. When I started 2011, 2012, we were about 50 employees. So about every year we've had double-digit growth. And so that is something that's super helpful for people to know, especially when you're looking for like a growing company. That's usually a really good sign. So there's usually not a layoff. For instance, LCS has never had a layoff. So I'm sure that's something that as you're doing job searches for, you do want to look at the company. What else? And we're about 550 employees. So that's just a little bit more of what I covered. So usually in the information section, I would show like the virtual tour of our office. I'm going to kind of skip through that, but that's also in like the YouTube link that you guys can see. And then this is usually where I show more about like the culture or specific role video that also is in that YouTube link. And then usually we talk about culture. So the culture at LCS, we are very intentional about the culture. We actually have a marketing specialist who will create at least 2 different events that the whole company can go to. And so it could be like an international potluck, or it could be like, a game, playing video games or different things during lunch, or having some kind of competition. We also have food trucks that come on a regular basis. So we've got usually 3, I would say, across a month, depending on the season. And I would say the whole point of having that is to be able to bring everybody together, to make the company have that homey feel where you feel comfortable, happy, you have the things that you need, you can connect with others, you can help one another, you can support one another in whatever it might be. So that's actually probably one of the reasons why we've won the Top Workplace Award for the last 14 years. It's not just because I've worked there 14 years, is what I say. But yeah, we've had a really great culture that way. It is definitely a learning culture, a culture of coaching and mentoring as well. So I kind of flew through that. Normally that takes, I'd say, at least 30 minutes or so, but that's normally what the initial like information session is like. And then depending on who we talk to, we've had different development, other like coding boot camps or tech elevator, cable academy. There's lots of different other programs that we've presented to. But this particular slideshow, I believe, is what we would show for tech elevator, which was more development focused. So then we would kind of go through the different roles that we have available. These are not always posted. This is just across time. So one thing I would have you think about is when you're looking at companies, sometimes there's roles that have been posted in the past and maybe they only come up like every 2 years or whatever it might be. If you have a particular company that you're really interested in, always just kind of keep an eye on all the different roles they've posted if you can across time, because that usually means they would probably come up again depending on the role itself. So these are the most common roles I'd say that we hire for. We're always hiring for our product support department, which is that software support focus, which also includes the technical support and accounting support. And so that actually is really the entry role into the company, I would say. It's not necessarily an entry role, which is another thing to kind of keep in mind when you're doing job searches. If you're doing like filters and looking entry role, sometimes it's helpful to look directly at that. And sometimes like when it's not specified, that's also helpful, because for instance, a software development company, we're trying to be able to pull people in to become a subject matter expert of the software and then grow within the company and go into other roles from there. So kind of keep that as a potential framework when you're looking for different things too. And then these are the different development roles we have posted in the past. We've actually not hired for full-time developer roles in almost a year. It's getting like, just because we were very overstaffed that way. We do have a co-op program, but the co-op program is specifically only for full-time enrolled students in university. And so that doesn't necessarily, it wouldn't be, that requirement would not be met if you're like in a coding boot camp, for instance. So that's one thing with our particular internships. I don't know if all companies work that way, but if you're seeing like a co-op or internship, sometimes there are requirements like that. And so then a lot of people ask, how do you progress within the company? And so for us, that continued learning is very important. So once you're already, let's say, a software developer 1, how do you become a 2? It's by continuing to learn, growing those different skills, becoming more competent across different areas. So for instance, if you're really good at C#, but we also use Angular and have API calls or things like that, also growing in those areas. There's also experience milestones for us, for people to be able to get to like the next level. And basically that means that you're usually working, you're having a certain amount of time where you have that depth of knowledge, or type of work is kind of similar to that, where you've actually been able to lead a project, or you've taken the point on a very particular area. All of that goes into how you would progress within the role once you're in the company. For our product support department team, so if someone were wanting to come in and become a subject matter expert and be on our product support department team, this is the career path for them. So usually after you've taken like the boot camp, you're considered level 1. From there, you become more of an expert by passing different certifications we have in the software. So this is not like external certifications like A+ or other things, which are also always very helpful to have, but this is specific within our software. So after you passed a few certifications, that's how you get to level 2, 3, and then an expert once you pass all of the different areas of our software. And that would be what growth looks like in that role. From there, a lot of people will apply for like our team lead roles, or we actually move people into different roles as we have openings in our implementation department, customer success. We also have a professional services department where they actually focus a lot on creating custom reports using our rent manager script. So a lot of different softwares can have their own custom script within their software. So for instance, for us, we would have certain methods to be able to pull information from our software and parameters. Once you kind of learn our rent manager scripting, you can pull that and make custom reports from there. This is a little bit about our hiring process. So like if you have a recruiter connection, first of all, you need to know what kind of recruiter you're talking to. I would be considered a corporate recruiter, meaning I'm only recruiting for the roles within my company, LCS, London Computer Systems. But there are other recruiters, that are maybe hiring for multiple companies, or they're trying to get those connections and then give it to the company. So you have to know what kind of recruiter you're talking with. Is one thing I would also keep in mind in the process too. But I was a recruiter, and like I mentioned, I would give all of these different info sessions. So they would apply online and they'd have to put, hey, I've got that connection, which would only help you in that process. Then from there, our HR hiring team reviews the resumes. Same as if it flowed through Indeed, or if it flowed through LinkedIn, or if you just applied directly on the career website. And then usually from there, we send an initial email. This is actually one of the big places where you may be able to find different jobs that have reached out to you that maybe you didn't know about, that I'll give a tip for here in a minute. Once people have responded back to that email, we usually set up a time for a phone screening. We actually have shifted to Microsoft Teams for our initial screening. So it's a booking link that we use now. If they're moved past the screening, then we schedule a Zoom meeting. And I know that's a different platform, but just kind of be aware that people use different platforms for different points in time. But then we actually schedule a Zoom meeting, usually with a department manager or HR hiring team member. The next step would be that. And usually if you pass that, that's normally when you talk to HR, you would potentially get an offer letter. You'd have that start date. And then a week before that, we send out an email which has lots of different information, like the common questions people ask about, like, even if we've covered it, like, what's the dress code? What are the things I should bring to the first day? We give lunch to everybody on the first day, so they don't need to worry about that. And then day one, we have all of our orientations on site. For the first 4 weeks, actually, we've just shifted to all the training on site. And from there, people can stay on site or they can go to our hybrid option, which is an exactly 50% in office and at home option. We don't have fully remote. So I know Danny mentioned that he's had different presentations about finding remote roles. He's probably going to be the expert on that. But I can kind of give you some more information just, on those things. I would also say, so we also share the different developer tools and technologies that we use at our company, because I think that a lot of people aren't necessarily able to see that as transparently as they would like to when you're looking for a job, especially as a junior developer, and maybe you don't have Angular experience, but maybe you have C#. So if you were able to kind of take a course on some of those other things, that's going to make you a stronger candidate. But these are the different technologies that we use. We have our mobile apps that we've also developed, and we've developed that using Kotlin and Swift. And then these are also the queue manage options. And then general is just for like our rent manager software. These are some different discussion topics. When I was reading these, this is normally, if it were in person, we would have different developers or employees at different tables, and everybody would go to those tables and they would kind of just be able to ask them and talk with them, for 5 minutes. Then we shift those developers around so they can get a wide variety of input from actual developers. These are some of the questions that we have up on the screen. These are actually really good questions to ask a recruiter or a hiring manager if you're in that interview process as well. I would say always have a few questions ready to go. And if the recruiter or the hiring manager has answered all of them in the discussion, still have at least one. Okay, that's one of your goals. Okay. So then that's kind of the end of our typical info session. And then from there, we kind of move on. So here are some of the common applicant mistakes that I just kind of came up with from what I see on a regular basis. I might stop real quick. I don't know if you guys had any questions yet. I don't see any, so I think we're good. So yeah, I just threw them all on here. It's not a pretty slide, but here it is. So first of all, as I was telling you in our process, we send out an email. Now that email can come from an applicant tracking system. We use ADP, but there's so many out there. But you can send those from that system, or you can send it separately, if people have interconnections with like their Gmail or if they have Outlook. So I send it from my sabrina.com at lcs.com. because sometimes I've noticed when we send it from our ATS, it'll get flagged as spam. Well, even when I send it from my Outlook, sometimes it's still flagged as spam. So one thing that you should always do on a regular basis, especially if you have a Gmail, is go to your spam folder and scroll through. Or you can go to your spam folder and then search. What is so counterintuitive, which I never realized before, is you would think if you are logged into your Gmail, there's the search at the top that you can search and it'll search all folders. Wrong. It actually won't search the spam folder, which is a very interesting fact, especially since a lot of different things can go there that you're looking for. So that's just how Gmail is. Also, sometimes it goes into like the promotions section. And I don't know if that pulls into the search. I think that one does. The spam does not. So one big thing is if you've been applying for jobs, and usually it's on a monthly cycle or however long that job opening would be open for, make sure you physically go to your spam folder and scroll through and look for a message. Same as promotions. Also, what's really helpful is whitelisting. You know, for instance, since we use ADP, you can whitelist at adp.com or Workday or whatever those different ones are, but that doesn't always capture everything either. Another thing is I would avoid using iCloud email. For some reason, that doesn't always go through at all. Those are the main ones I can think of when it comes to email. So let's see what else I got here. Sign up for the text notifications. So let's say that you go to the career site, which is usually one of the best ways to apply for something. Go to the company's career site. A lot of times they'll have an option to sign up for text messages. And yes, you'll have to put your cell phone number in there and allow for that. But I would definitely do that if you're very serious about your job search, because when we do follow-ups is normally when that text message will be sent again. There's always an initial one like, hey, we got it. And then you know that it's working. And then if we don't hear from you on that email, for instance, if it went to spam or whatever it is, usually we try to follow up if we haven't heard from you within 2 weeks. So you've gotten at least 2 or 3 outreaches. So that's something to think about. One thing that we don't do, just because it's a capacity issue, and I totally understand all sides of this, is if we aren't moving forward, we won't email you within that week or 2 after that initial application. So if you haven't heard from someone within 2 weeks, usually that means it's a no-go. Some are able to send an automated, we are not moving forward with your application. That's too much for our capacity at this point. And I think that again is tricky. We can have a whole discussion on this later, so I won't be too, I won't stay on that point too long, but we can talk about it later if you want. All right, next thing. So apply directly to career website. We kind of talked about that. Do research on the company products, services, and values, and share what you know. I've talked to a lot of people that come seemingly unprepared. Now they might not be, and they might just be, playing a game of like, well, you tell me about your company. I wouldn't play that game. I would always do your research if you're serious, be ready to share about all the information. So for instance, if you were applying for LCS, you should be able to mention those services I mentioned, Rent Manager, Q Manage, some of the other products, that it's been around for a while and it's in Northern Cincinnati. Just an overview like that, that you've heard about the culture. And then maybe say, okay, but I'd love to hear more from there. But always have something that can prove that you've done some work, you've got some teeth in the game, you really are interested in this. Prepare an example. Okay, so if you're going to, depending on what role you're applying for, but let's say it's software developer, you want to prepare an example of what went wrong and how you overcame it, let's say in your coding project. So, you all have your capstones and different things like that you're focusing on in different projects, even throughout the process. While you're there, like make a Google Doc or something that's like an ongoing living document that you can just kind of put in there. Oh, that would be a great example of, this was so frustrating, but then I found out I misnamed the method when I was making the connector. And once I found that using, the Visual Studio and the search, this is how I was able to resolve it and how I knew it was working. Just having a few are really, really important. And as technical, as many technical things as you can while you're brainstorming it, because once you get into an interview, whatever you've prepared is just going to come out during that. Another thing, be enthusiastic. I've talked to different people that are just monotone. I don't know if they're nervous, few things. Definitely, be presentable, don't have holes on your shirt or different things like that. It's nice to use a background instead of me seeing like the messy bedroom. I mean, some of these I feel like are common sense, but I thought I'd just go ahead and share them because it's helpful to just present yourself in that way, or just to be aware of how that can come across. But the enthusiasm is probably one of the biggest things that could set you apart in your screening and interview. Being excited about the products that you've read about that maybe you could get a chance to work with. Being excited about the different options and growth opportunities there at the company, or just being excited about the content of what could be your potential future job. All right, how are we doing? I think we're doing okay. I know I'm just kind of running through this. Add certs and be working towards something always. And that kind of goes with the next bullet point of show initiative in learning and applying your skills. So, having those different certifications that are known across the industry are always helpful. If there's different things that Microsoft offers or Google offers, always trying to be working towards something is very helpful that you can speak to, and in a very specific way, not too generalizing. But that shows initiative. And that's one thing that a lot of people are looking for when they're looking to hire somebody. Let's see what else I got. All right, so then just a few thoughts on LinkedIn and Indeed. So LinkedIn, last time I checked, and it might have changed since then, it actually allowed up to 100 skills to be added to your profile. Now that might have changed, but when that happened, I was like, that's great. And the reason why that's great is because recruiters on our side, we will actually be able to filter different candidates within an area by a lot of different things, one of which is skills. So if you don't have, let's say, C# as a skill, and I'm trying to find a good candidate and I've selected, hey, I want to find someone that's got that listed, I'll put C#. That may be, preventing you from being at the top, as an example. So if you see different skills that are listed on a job posting and you really want to work at that company, or you really want that job, try to compare it with your LinkedIn profile and see, well, do I have those listed? Does it even look like I've got that match? Open to work. This I know is a little tricky. If you're currently working for a company and you don't want them to see you're open for work, I understand. But there are some different options that you can do with that. But there, again, that's another filter for recruiters where we can actually select, I want to only view the people that are open for work. And so you might not have that green banner, per se, but if you've got that setting for recruiters to see it, that's something that I'm able to filter by. Also with full-time and hybrid. So I know a lot of you are looking for remote roles. If you've got on there that you want remote roles, then usually a recruiter will filter by, hybrid, on-site, but not remote. For instance, that's what I have to do because we don't offer the full remote roles. And I saw that in the question. Sorry about that. It's just, that's the way it is. But that's something helpful for you to know, that companies maybe that do offer that, they might be selecting remote and kind of pulling you from that batch. Let's see, reach out to your network. It's true. If you have any friends that are in a company that you would like to work for, definitely talk to them first. Say, what is it like to work at the company? Do you know if there's open roles? Go to the site yourself and do that research too, and be like, hey, I saw this role for this. Do you think that would be a fit? Do you have a referral program? Because that would then also motivate your friend to put your name in with HR so that they can kind of consider you that way. And that's why they always say, leverage your network, your friends, your family, things like that. Reach out to the hiring recruiter to ask next steps or what skills you may need to be a good fit for the role. So for instance, let's say that I reached out to somebody, never heard back from them, but then on LinkedIn, they message me. I cross-check it with the ATS and it's like, hey, I did send you an email. You never responded back. That's kind of an additional way that you could potentially be following up where something maybe was missed. So don't be afraid to do that, in a very just, relaxed way, like, hey, I saw this company. I know you're a recruiter for it. I'd love to work there. If you have any tips or anything for me, let me know. maybe don't expect a ton of information back because there's a lot that people are doing all the time, but it's worth you reaching out if you really are invested in wanting to work for that company. All right, so that was LinkedIn. So for Indeed, there are some different filters with Indeed that are a little different. There's actually a filter for if you've updated your resume in the last week, month, 6 months, or all time. So if you go in there and you actually update your resume and someone uses those time filters, that's how they can find you potentially that way. So one thought is that if you're serious, maybe just go in there and update it weekly. It doesn't mean that you're adding new jobs, but maybe you're adding like a different bullet point or something, you know, that would be helpful that way, or adjusting your summary. And then this is something that I just actually found recently. I threw it on here. Sorry, it's just like last slide, I think, that I've got. But being prepared for different questions that you think might come up in the interview. So one thing that people might ask, what are your greatest strengths? What are your greatest weaknesses? Nobody wants to talk about your greatest weaknesses, but you want to be prepared in case they do. And so if they do, here are some potential responses, you know, like it shows that you have awareness of what your skills are. And whenever you mention your weakness, always mention on how you've been able to start overcoming it or what you do to work on it. Because then that shows, again, awareness, but also that you are working towards positive change. So these are just some of the updates I had. I know I kind of flew through some different things. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're able to take at least one thing away from this. I know you got to learn about LCS, but hopefully some of those tips were helpful. And then, yeah, I'll just open it up to different questions, discussions. If you want to throw something in the chat. If you haven't already looked at the chat, that's where I put the YouTube links for LCS, London Computer Systems. We're in Northern Cincinnati. So if you do have any friends that are looking and have connections up there, feel free to put my, LinkedIn, email. I'll also put that, I guess, in there too. If you know anybody that's looking that way. But also, if any of the roles looked interested, here are the actual roles we have open at careers.lcs.com. But if you do see anything there, yeah, pass it along. Again, networking is one of the best things. And so I think that's about all I have. But thank you, everybody, for joining today.
Thank you. This is great. This is so helpful.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, so Dan, I saw in some of the LCS job openings, they list scheduled shifts 10 to 7. Is that the typical regular daily schedule at LCS? So our hours are 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The specific roles for product support, accounting support, technical support, we only hire our 10 to 7. And that's mainly because we've got about 30,000 users of the software. So most are in the US, some are in Canada and Mexico, but a lot in California. So the business need, where we've actually got call volume and things like that, is that 10 to 7. Now, just because a job said that doesn't mean it could potentially change in the future, but that would have to be something that you would have to ask and have a discussion with. So for instance, if someone was like, hey, I can't work because I have to pick my kids up at 6, well, that would be a deal breaker because we need the 10 to 7. But if someone was like, hey, is there a possibility for that schedule to change over time? The answer would be yes. And for us specifically, the way that happens is as we do different internal moves, like, so for instance, once someone becomes a subject matter expert of rent manager, they can apply to different roles within the company, like our implementation department or customer success or professional services departments. So when they make a move, maybe let's say they were working the 9:30 to 6:30 shift, or maybe the 9 to 6. And those are probably the two most common. We do have a skeleton shift 8 to 5, but we really don't get a lot of call volume. So that's not a business need. So that's always something to kind of think through, like, what does this company need? And am I what they need? So kind of shift that perspective, because a lot of times when you're job searching, you're like, well, what do I want, right? And so if that's what you've been thinking for a while, that's great. But also shift that sometimes and think, well, why would they need that? Would be why we need that 10 to 7. And yes, it is possible to change over time. There's just no set time frame on when we do those internal moves. So it could be 6 months, it could be close to a year. Usually not longer than that, though. Any other questions? Yep, you're welcome. Yep. And if you just want to unmute yourself, Carol, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So can you talk more about the web development? Like, when you're a recruiter for like all positions at LCS?
I've been. Currently, I'm only focused on product support, and then it depends on the sales, marketing. So we allocate our roles a little differently sometimes. So, but I can speak to the role that you're talking about.
Yes, that would be great. I work for a tech company and I'm an SDR. And
Okay.
so it's kind of interesting seeing your role at this company. I reached out to a recruiter for Civic Plus, which is my company that I work at. And I don't know if she works with the company or if she was like a third-party recruiter business, like its own recruiting business hired with the company.
And I think that can get really confusing to people. Yeah. How, like, is this recruiter working for this actual company? Like for me, I'm a corporate recruiter. That's what it would be called. I only recruit because I work for LCS. I worked for LCS for 14 years, but then there's other companies that will reach out on behalf of other postings that they'll just find online. So I think that is a really good question to ask. Maybe I'm trying to think how you could ask it. Like, are you a third-party recruiting company or are you a corporate recruiter for this job?
Okay.
Could be a way to ask.
Okay, good. So back to the web dev thing, what can you tell us about, like, if you were looking for a strong candidate to do web development?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very big umbrella term, but
Right.
I'm not sure sometimes where the best focus on. I saw the product specialist page for the technologies and stuff. I'm sure there's other technologies that a web developer is going to use. Like, what about a web developer that can make their own SVG files? Would that be something valuable to add or that they would look for? Like using Inkscape, or you know what I mean? Like these
right. Right. So I know when we've had postings in the past for those who would be creating those custom websites for the customers, it is different. Like, so understanding the layer of complexity or level of complexity that the company is looking for is important. And usually a lot of times, sorry, my light keeps going out. Usually you can see that in the job posting, but not always. So for instance, for our web developers in the past that are creating those custom sites, usually we've needed at least 3+ years experience in a professional environment where you were getting paid to create custom websites. That is a pretty hard line. And so it would be very difficult for someone from like a coding boot camp going and applying for that. You wouldn't be selected. So always look at the requirements. And then for instance, we have WordPress on there. Well, there is a difference between, copying a template and then adjusting the colors and kind of clicking through the template and customizing it and making a custom one, as people might use that term or potentially misuse that term, versus creating it from scratch, like creating your own, CSS file, creating your own, color scheme, like all of that is very, it's at a different level. So understanding the level of that job posting can also be helpful. So that when, let's say you do get to a screening, you're able to actually give examples to the depth that maybe they're looking for.
This is so helpful, so unbelievably helpful. And this, if you're usually like making websites 3+ years, that could be freelance work, right? If you have a portfolio, you can demonstrate. And like that's something that, as in this boot camp, I can start working on and developing a freelancer portfolio. And
having a portfolio is a must for sure. We would always ask for the portfolio link, and then we would actually go to the source code and see, did you customize this, or did you, use a template and then just kind of like write over it a little bit, like me. So like there's a difference. And so we kind of will dig in actually when we're looking at that, at the source code, at functionality, at if it is like a modern look or whatever kind of feel that we're looking for at the time. So that would be something else to consider. Also, as it's an artistic form, I would say to have the right colors and for it to be, I can't think of the right word, but if you've got any artists out there, how like purple and yellow are complementary, like things like that. We really do look in depth at that as well.
I have a painting degree, so this is like
excellent. Yeah. So I hope that was helpful. I don't know if I've got much more, but I would just say make sure you look at, just to sum it up, look at the posting. You want to make sure that you're kind of fitting what it is. If not, you could always reach out to the recruiter, maybe on LinkedIn, and be like, hey, is there anything else that you see that maybe I could improve on? You may or may not get an answer back. Don't be disappointed if you don't, but at least it's worth a shot. Okay, yeah. I guess I'll go to the next question. Isaac, is the recruiter a tech recruiter or just a general recruiter for the company? Changes your approach depending on that. It can, but I would just always assume that the general recruiter could probably also know a lot of technical things. So be prepared to be specific. I've talked to a lot of people that when I'm actually just asking them to take me step by step, how did you create this program? It's way too general. And it's like, I don't know if you know what you're talking about. So you want to be specific. You got to find that little balance. And usually you can kind of read that a little bit, but that's actually one of my areas of frustration is when I'm asking for specific examples. Sometimes people, for instance, what went wrong in your project? Oh, that's been so long ago. Oh, and that's fair because I was trying to think about that actually right before this presentation with Danny. I was like, if I had to answer that question myself, it feels like a long time ago, 2 years ago, but 2 years really isn't that long. I mean, for instance, we'll even ask like your GPA for high school or college or whatever. If you don't remember, at least have a range, so things like that. I don't know if that was helpful, Isaac. It does change your approach, and it can. I would say default to being more technical usually. Maybe don't over talk too much. Can you guys see me? Okay, sorry, something popped up. Yeah, try to avoid too much jargon if it's a general recruiter. Yeah, but also throw in a little bit, otherwise they may not know if you know what you're talking about. I was talking to somebody who did automations. I'm like, what do you mean by an automation? And his automation would just be to mass email everybody. And then when they had feedback, they'd have to still email it to him and he would manually make the changes. There's, a lot of different levels of things. So try to be as specific as you can, especially if it's more complex. Any other questions? I'm sure y'all want to get out of here. Oh, I might have just been looking at the chat. Let me see if there's a whole question section.
Yeah, that one just came in through the Q&A.
Okay, got it. Outline the core competencies, foundational skills required for entry-level candidates in this field. That is quite a big question. Oh, and when you say field, what field? Software development or just the tech field? I would say generally speaking, because I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for that one, but generally speaking, I would definitely, in a job posting, usually it'll list the competencies they're looking for and skills. I don't know if that was as helpful as what you were looking for. Anything else? I think that's all I got, guys. If you want to jump in, last call. Yeah, please definitely, connect with me on LinkedIn. I really want to give back to this community. Like I said, I am so thankful for CodeU. I loved my mentors. Like I can't say enough about them. I think I was able to recruit some mentors from LCS for the C# program. So I feel a little proud about that because I'll always reach out to them. But again, we are in northern Cincinnati, so it's a little out of scope for a lot of you in Kentucky. But
yeah, thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Yep, loved it. I hope you all good luck in all of your programs. Keep it up. I know it can be very overwhelming at times. Just keep at it step by step. It's going to click. You're going to do great. I know it's a lot. So thank you again.